They call the Philippines the Pearl of the Orient Seas, a nation of 7,000 islands where the sun kisses the horizon with a golden promise every single morning. In a world obsessed with price tags, we often forget that some things are too sacred to be sold. This is not a story about economics, and it is not a story about poverty. This is the legend of Barangay Tala, a tiny, pristine island in the heart of the Visayas, and the week a royal Arab prince tried to buy it. It is the story of how the Filipino spirit, often tested by history, stood taller than a mountain of oil money. To understand why they refused, you must first breathe in the air of Tala. It is a place where life moves at the rhythm of the tides. There are no skyscrapers here to block the view of the Milky Way, only swaying coconut palms and the laughter of children playing on white sand that feels like powdered sugar. For generations, the families of Tala have lived by the code of Bayanihan, the belief that the community carries the burden together. They are fishermen, weavers, and farmers. They are not rich by Western standards. Their homes are modest bahay kubo and concrete structures. But their wealth is found in the coral reefs, teeming with life, and the fact that no one in the village ever goes hungry because neighbors always share their catch. The peace of this tropical paradise was shattered on a Tuesday morning when the Royal Mirage arrived. It was a super yacht the size of a cruise ship, gleaming with gold accents, casting a huge shadow over the small, colorful bancas floating in the harbor. The owner was Prince Zayed Al Fayed, a billionaire royalty known for building futuristic cities in the desert. His data analysts had found Tala, noting it possessed the clearest waters in the world and a geography perfect for a private sovereign kingdom. The prince didn't see a home. He saw the ultimate trophy. He didn't see a community. He saw a labor force to be relocated. He came with a checkbook that could buy nations, fully expecting the locals to bow down. The arrival was a spectacle that shook the quiet provincial life. Speedboats ferried men in white thobs and dark sunglasses to the bamboo docks, where the locals watched with shy curiosity. Leading the village was Capitan Ambo, a man with skin weathered by the Pacific sun and hands calloused from hauling nets since he was 5 years old. He welcomed the prince with trademark Filipino hospitality, offering fresh mangoes and coconut water, smiling warmly despite the intimidating bodyguards. Prince Zayed set up a presentation in the village basketball court. He spoke of transformation. He spoke of turning their humble island into a private Eden. He promised that the Philippines would be famous because of the palace he was about to build. But as the holographic renders lit up the humid evening air, the locals saw the truth. The presentation showed massive golden domes and glass towers replacing the mango orchards. It showed their ancestral burial grounds where their lolos and lolas rested, paved over for a private airstrip. It showed the coastline, free for everyone for centuries, fenced off for royalty only. The prince spoke of jobs, but the images showed Filipinos only as servants, cleaning marble floors on the land their ancestors died defending. The slick video didn't show the fiestas, the Sunday masses, or the karaoke nights. It was a vision of paradise that had no room for the people who actually lived there. Then came the offer, the number that was meant to end the conversation before it began. The prince displayed a figure in pesos that had so many zeros it looked like a coordinate. He offered 250 billion pesos for the total acquisition of the island's municipal land. He offered every family a house in Metro Manila, a brand new car, and enough cash to send their children to universities abroad. He framed it as a blessing from above. He told them they could leave the hard life of fishing behind. No more fearing the typhoons, no more waiting for the harvest. It was a ticket to the modern world, a chance to escape the province and live like kings in the city. The shockwave rippled through every household. That night, the sound of crickets was replaced by the hushed whispers of intense debate. The temptation was undeniably real. In a country where many are forced to become overseas Filipino workers in the Middle East just to support their families, this money meant they would never have to leave home again. The younger generation saw the allure of the city lights. They argued that holding on to tradition was stubbornness. "We can buy a mansion in Makati," one shouted. "We can finally stop smelling like fish." The promise of instant comfort is a powerful drug, and for a moment, the unity of the barangay threatened to crack under the weight of the prince's gold. However, the Filipino culture is built on Pamana heritage. As the sun rose over the mist-covered mountains, the elders began to speak. Nanay Rosa, the village weaver, gathered her grandchildren. She pointed to the sea. "That ocean," she said, "fed your father when he was a baby. That land grew the rice that made you strong. Money runs out, anak. But the land? The land is a mother who never stops giving. She reminded them that in the city, they would just be another face in the crowd. But here, they were guardians of a paradise. They realized that the prince wasn't buying land. He was buying their history. He was buying the memories of every fiesta, every Christmas lantern, and every sunrise. The deadline for the decision was set for high noon at the town plaza. The heat was blistering, but the entire population of Tala stood shoulder to shoulder. The prince's advisors sat at a plastic table, sweating in the humidity, contracts ready for signing. They looked at the villagers with pity, assuming the delay was just a negotiation tactic to get more money. Captain Ambo stepped forward. He wasn't wearing a suit. He wore his simple barong Tagalog, worn thin by time but worn with immense dignity. He looked at the prince, not with anger, but with the calm resolve of a man who knows exactly who he is. Captain Ambo placed a single coconut on the table next to the stack of legal papers. "Your Highness," he said in clear English, "you offer us a life of ease. You offer to take away our burden of work." He paused, looking at his neighbors, the farmers, the teachers, the fisherfolk. "But hard work is not our enemy, it is our honor. We Filipinos do not mind calloused hands. What we fear is an empty soul." He explained that the land was not theirs to sell. It belonged to the spirits of their ancestors and the future of their grandchildren. To sell it would be to orphan the next generation. It would be walong uting na lubin act of ingratitude to the Creator who gifted them this pearl. The silence that followed was louder than the crashing waves. Captain Ambo pushed the contract away. "We are not for sale. Our smiles are not for sale. Our sunset is not for sale." The rejection was absolute. It was a moment of dangle, pure, unadulterated dignity. Prince Zayed was stunned. In all his years of power, he'd never met a poor man who didn't want to be rich. He tried to double the offer, shouting that they were being fools, that they were condemning their children to a life of peasantry. But the villagers just stood there, smiling, not a mocking smile but a proud one. They started singing, a soft, spontaneous rendition of Bayanihan, a song about love for the motherland. The advisors packed up their briefcases, confused and defeated by a force they couldn't audit. The prince looked at the island one last time from the deck of the Royal Mirage. He saw the children running into the surf, screaming with joy. He saw the smoke rising from the communal grills where the neighbors were preparing a feast, not because they were rich, but because they were together. For the first time the prince felt poor. He had billions in the bank, but he had no home like this. He had servants, but no kapwa, no shared identity with others. He realized he could buy the concrete, but he could never buy the magic of the Filipino spirit. As the massive yacht turned its engines on and departed, polluting the air with black smoke, the skies over Tala cleared. The villagers didn't mourn the loss of the money. Instead, they held the biggest fiesta the island had ever seen. They roasted lechon, they danced the tinikling, and they shared stories late into the night. They celebrated the fact that they still had their dignity and they still had their home. The fishermen went back to the sea the next day, their pockets empty of millions, but their hearts full of pride. They had proven that the Philippines is not just a piece of real estate on a map. It is a sacred trust. News of the island that refused billions spread across the archipelago. It became a beacon of hope for other provinces fighting against commercialization. Travelers started coming to Tala, not the VIPs the prince wanted, but backpackers and eco-tourists who wanted to learn from the locals. They slept in the bahay kubos, ate with their hands on banana leaves, and learned the true meaning of wealth. The village thrived, not by selling out, but by looking inward. They built a future on their own terms, preserving the pristine beauty of the Philippines for the world to admire, but for no one to own. Today, if you visit Tala, you won't find a palace or a golden gate. You will find a sign at the dock that reads, "Welcome to Paradise." Owned by the people, the story of their refusal is told to every child, a reminder that while gold shines, it is cold. But the soil of the Philippines? It is warm, it is alive, and it is priceless. The pearl of the Orient remains unpolished by foreign machines, shining with its own natural, enduring light. The locals proved that the true treasure of the Philippines isn't the land itself, it is the people who love it enough to say no. Thanks for watching. If this story inspired you, please consider liking and subscribing for more.